Well, it doesn't look like Sinners is quite the winner that the Shills are making it out to be, and hence the title for this video and the obvious thumbnail that you saw coming in the door. Why? Well, it's kind of complicated because it's going to look good on paper for the first weekend. After that, I think it's going to be a terrible failure. Let's talk about why. Here we go. Now, before we get started, just a quick reminder. I'm on the road to 50K, hopefully by the middle of the summer, and 100K by the end of this year. So you can help with that. Go ahead and double check you're still subscribed to the channel. Whether you've been here for the first time or the 1,000th time, do be sure that you are subscribed and you have notifications turned on. That way you don't miss anything, because I seem to produce a lot of material every single week, and I don't think you want to miss any of it. But we're going to jump into Sinners, and I can't do that without a helper. In this case, it's going to be little Chad from Ascended Art Podcast. How are you doing there, Chad?
I'm great, Culture. Thanks for having me here as we march ever forward to 50K.
That's
like,
right.
subscribe, share, people.
Of course. And of course, you got to check out Ascended Art Podcast, where little Chad comes from. They talk about how to make money at movies and why Hollywood is lousy at it, on top of video games and many other things as well. Their premiere show is on Fridays. Don't miss it. But let's jump into this real quickly, Chad. You were one of the people that were skeptical about this film from the very beginning and skeptical about its performance. And let's talk about why, but let's use the article here from SlashFilm to get us started. What do you think are the 5 reasons why Ryan Coogler's Sinners killed it at the box office?
I mean, I'll give it credit. It surprised in beating Minecraft for the #1 movie this opening weekend over Easter weekend. You would have thought generally Easter weekend that family movies would outperform a gore, horror, Southern Gothic horror. I think in this case, King of Kings took just enough out of the Minecraft sales because that movie performed very well. I mean, if you want the story of overperformance for Easter weekend, it was King of Kings by Angel Studios, not Sinners. But yeah, so the mainstream media is just going to be going on the fact that it overperformed versus box office tracking. And to be fair, that's now 2 movies in a row for Warner Brothers that have overperformed their box office tracking, which is very rare of late. Most movies lately have been like as Snow White. It'll hit tracking at like 63, and by the time it actually opens, it's at 40. So the shill media is applauding this because it's a positive versus what they expected. Right there, I think on the screen, the article is pointing out initial tracking was 30 to 40, and it overperformed to 48. Based on strong word of mouth. So, I mean, that's a positive for the movie, but once you dig deeper, it's got a lot of structural problems that are going to keep this from actually being an investment that was worth making for Hollywood.
Well, and it goes on to say essentially what you're saying. It picked the perfect release date, except there's one small problem. I don't know that that really mattered. It definitely had competition, obviously, still from Minecraft and, of course, King of Kings, the Dickens tale. But it also had some other interesting things, like some over-claiming of what the performance looked like. Why do I say that? Well, let's look at what it actually did. It did 48 million domestic and a dismal 15.4 million international. Now, for whatever reason, this particular film, rated R horror, maybe doesn't perform all that great overseas. Are there any other reasons you can think of that why this film is not going to perform well outside the US?
So there's 3 historic reasons why this movie is not going to do well internationally. Number 1, American horror movies generally don't perform well overseas. They're very niche, especially if they're tied into a specific part of American culture. This is a Southern Gothic horror. It's not going to perform well like overseas. The horror movies that will do well overseas are like the Freddys and the Jasons, where it's just like a franchise. And by perform well, I mean it doesn't do great. Like, horror doesn't usually make. There's 2 genres in Hollywood that don't make money overseas, and that's horror and comedy. They don't translate to the foreign markets easily. So they don't do as well. The second main thing, and this is something that people don't like to talk about in Hollywood, but Asia specifically as a region is generally not super in favor of movies with African American leads. We have Michael B. Jordan not playing just one, but two as twins in this movie leads. He's playing two roles. The whole most of the cast is African American, as evidenced by our boy Finn and what Star Wars and Lucasfilm did when they were needing to market that in Asia, when they completely removed him from the movie poster. When Black Panther, which was directed by Ryan Coogler, they purposefully didn't use a picture of Chadwick Boseman. They made sure it was just the costume when they were marketing Black Panther. So that's a second structural reason. And the third one is that this one is very music centric. I don't know if you've seen the movie or just read the reviews. It leans very heavily into blues, and also some Irish music. So when you mix all those elements together, this is probably not going to break 100 million worldwide. I would be
Well,
surprised if it makes 80.
Well, and wouldn't that be difficult for it to overcome its budget? Because you and I both know this cost over $90 million, not including marketing. If they're going to spend half the budget, and that's being kind, on marketing, this film is never going to be profitable.
Yeah, the conservative rule of thumb that you usually can go with is 2.5 like it's 2.5 times the budget, because you've got it. Because as we know, the people who watch your videos are well aware, a studio doesn't take 100% of ticket,
Nope.
the gate as it's called. They're on average over the course of an entire run, usually around 50%, with it being a little higher or a little lower depending on the deal and how long they let it sit in theaters. So and then you have to account for marketing, right? Movies don't just appear and have people show up. You have to spend money on. In the old days, they called it prints and advertising, P&A. Now it's pretty much just advertising, because prints don't exist. It's just digital hard drives that you send out, or memory sticks, whatever the format. So this movie needs roughly around 225 million on the conservative end, assuming they did the normal marketing. If they spent more than that, it goes up. So 225 million is what they'd need to take in order to make sure that they are recouping their budget plus marketing, so that they break even. That's just break even.
Yeah, and you and I both agree at this point it's not going to do so. And yet we get stories like this from Vulture asking that very same question. So is Sinners going to make money or lose money? I think it's going to lose quite a bit of money, and I think it's going to show that Ryan Coogler is a one-trick pony. I could be wrong, but we'll find out soon enough. He's got more films coming up in the future, including a delayed Black Panther 3 film.
So I will push back a little and say that I like Ryan Coogler. I think he at least has talent. When you go see the movie Sinners, at least what I went and saw it, and I am very grateful that Hollywood doesn't have more people like Coogler, who are capable of integrating their messaging into a narrative so that it's kind of stealth. He doesn't beat you, like, it actually is organic to the story. He was smart. He set this movie in the 1920s/30s, so that it was, when people talk about like racism and overt racism, it's much easier to accept and understand that in the Deep South in that era it was happening, than when you try to set it in different eras. Point being, Coogler himself isn't the issue. The problem is, so this movie got into a bidding war when it first got offered. Like, Coogler wrote and was set and attached to direct it, and he has Michael B. Jordan on speed dial. So as soon as he writes and has a project ready, he can say, I've got Michael B. Jordan ready to star.
Yeah.
So
Attached is the term in Hollywood.
exactly. So it got into a bidding war, and that's where Warner Brothers ended up winning the bidding war by giving him a $90 million budget. And this is the interesting thing: after 25 years, the rights revert to his family. him and his estate, his family, whichever it is. So the rights to this movie, all characters, sequels, everything revert. Someone I saw was pointing out that Ryan Coogler learned the lesson of having after having worked with Sylvester Stallone. If this is your baby, make sure you can get it back, because you don't want somebody just coming in and doing what they want with it. And that happened to Sly with Rocky. He was an unknown when he wrote it, and in order to get the deal where he would get to star in it, he had to give up all the rights to it when they were producing it. So Coogler, this is just Hollywood being silly. No one in Hollywood should have been thinking that this at 90 million was a good investment.
Well, and here's some pushback, because according to Vulture, they're saying that according to a source close to production, I don't believe them. Sinners only needs to earn 170 million to recoup its upfront costs, not 300 million as previously reported. Well, what do you think of that, little Chad? Do you think that's accurate?
That would indicate that it would have an end cost of $68 million. This movie was shot in Louisiana, which does have a film tax credit program.
So do you think? So
do I think it got $22 million in credits? No, no, I don't. I think this is some interesting Hollywood math, and it's because right now Warner Brothers is under scrutiny to try to show profitability, because Zaslav has made that his guiding principle is profitability. So if you're one of Zaslav's executives and you greenlit a movie at 90 million and then did P&A, and you need it to gross $225 million worldwide to break even, when it's not even get close. So I think right now, based on that first weekend, they ran the numbers and looked at what it could do domestically with the runway it has through May when some other movies open up, and what it's going to probably do foreign, and said it's going to peter out somewhere around 170. Let's get the narrative out there that we're happy with that, because that's break even. And then everything else we get on digital and any ancillaries is going to be pure profit, because it'll make them look better. Like this is setting a narrative. This isn't truth.
Right. And that seems to be what all of these shill media items are out there doing, whether it be SlashFilm or Vulture or Deadline or, Variety. Doesn't matter. They're trying to lay out a narrative when a $61 million global haul is going to be actually embarrassing, because it's going to take at least a 50% hit next weekend and end up somewhere around the $8 million number in the third weekend. So they're just trying to see if they can eke it to that number. I have to tell you, go ahead.
I was going to say I think the reason they did that is because opening weekend, right? You've worldwide opening weekend, you've got a rough of 2.5 to 3 times multiplier. That means how much it's going to finish making. If it's a 2.5 multiplier, it's around 160. If it's a 3 times multiplier, it's going to be around, I believe, 180. It's 183. So because Coogler has a track record where his movies are consistently delivering 2.5 to 3 times multiples, I believe that's why the Hollywood exec guys leaked out. We think we're good at 170, because what's roughly between the 2.5 and 3 time multiple? That 170 endpoint, where it's gonna, where they can be comfortable. And they wouldn't have known exactly where they needed to put that target until opening weekend to know how much it might make. Yep. So this is the kind of stuff where once you peel back the curtain, you can start seeing how the narrative is getting set to protect jobs, because it is recently reported that Zaslav has not been happy with some of the movie choices that were being greenlit and the budgets given to those movies. And so he's looking to shuffle off a lot of those executives. So they need to show that, like, Minecraft was a good, like, they were like, look at Minecraft, look how good we did there. But right after that, you get Sinners, and it's the same problem. I mean, Zaslav famously balked when he found out they were giving Clint Eastwood $80 to $100 million budgets to make the movies he was making, because Warner Brothers executives felt like Clint Eastwood, like if you bet on him and give him that kind of budget, every 2 or 3 movies, he's going to deliver a big hit.
Monster. Yeah.
Like an American Sniper.
And he almost always does. That's the thing. I mean, it's more he has more wins than fails. Speaking of fails, they're actually looking at this and calculating that the downstream revenues are going to bail this thing out, like you were mentioning. So the streaming deals that they make, the PVOD, the SVOD, etc. I have a feeling they know this movie is not going to be doing well, but at the same time, you have to think this thing's going to be calculated into at least two other failures. You have Mickey 17, which you didn't mention by name, but I know you were alluding to, and
Yep.
Alto Knights, which I'm telling you, nobody went to go see. So you
Nope.
had two other failures that were terribly embarrassing
High
for the Warner
profile,
Brothers. Yeah,
like
yeah,
Zaslav, like because Alto Knights was a Robert De Niro vehicle like that. You don't just sweep that on when you start putting that out there and sending it to festivals and doing things. You can't just pretend that you didn't invest in this movie, right? It's
yeah,
not like something you just disappear on streaming. And Mickey 17, the Warner Brothers made a big to do of signing the director from Parasite right after his Oscar win and
yeah.
giving him the effective blank check to do what he wanted to do, which was a really high concept sci-fi movie that was sticking it to Trump when that didn't even make sense in the context of the movie. He had other things he could have been focusing on, but they put Mark Ruffalo in to be a Trump stand-in, and it threw. Anyway, that's movie specific. But point again, these budgets are being greenlit with no good reason. Mickey 17, which is a kind of high concept kind of, you green like that for a 20 million to 30 million budget all in. Like including actor salaries, back ends, any of that stuff, because at this modern age, Zaslav with Max does make deals where he licenses movies out to Netflix, so he's got a little bit more runway. So if you keep these budgets reasonable, you can recoup cost over the period of 3 to 5 years, even if they bomb at the
Yeah,
box office.
yeah, here's the thing. They're in big trouble. The Mickey 17 thing was a complete failure. It was Pat. I'm sorry. I don't believe Pattinson is a box office draw. I think the Twilight days are well behind him now, and I don't understand any of his marketability. I look at Alto Knights knowing for sure nobody was going to go see that. Everybody's getting a little tired of De Niro and pretty much everything, and you can tell he's a little tired of being an actor at this point because he really does a poor job at it nowadays. When you look at this particular film, Sinners, it had an up and coming director that they're trying to, set in a position of power, which I think ultimately will be a mistake because, while he certainly has a handle on how film works and how to make one, I don't know that he's necessarily going to produce nothing but winners. And you only want to, back the directors that are going to give you more wins than losses. Kind of like, somebody you mentioned just before in, Clint Eastwood. But look, we'll set all that aside. I guess ultimately at the end of the day, and this is the conversation I wanted to have, is this film going to win or lose at the box office? Is it going to lose money? And if so, how much, Chad?
I think when all is said and done, I think this movie peters out quicker than they're thinking. I think it's at the 2.5 multiple level, which means about 150 to 160 as the total worldwide gross. And based on which is the 220, if they're taking only half of that, that's only about 80 million. So maybe it's enough to cover the just post tax credit production budget,
Right.
but everything on P&A is a loss. If they're putting this directly on Max and not actually selling it to Netflix, that's going to be a loss. That's how you can tell real fast. Like, if this movie ends up being licensed to Netflix at the same time or within 3-4 weeks of going to Max, that means Zaslav needed to recoup some money on this bad boy because it didn't make money. So the truth is in the moves, right? You can always see that. So watch Zaslav and what they do for the streaming rights for this one, whether it's locked down to just Max or whether they have a short window or no window on it. So I'm putting my chips on going all in on this thing being a money loser for at least the next 3 years before it could eventually, if they license it to Netflix, maybe break even.
Yeah, and I'm in the same camp. I think at best this thing will break even 4 or 5 years down the road. I think that they can't even pretend the digital sales on this. The digital and Blu-ray is going to exceed anything over $4 million, which seems to be the average these days. And I don't know that enough people saw this and thought highly of it that it's going to get any premium, VOD or SVOD interest. So I have a feeling that this movie's going to lose money. But hey, we're not just here for us, we're here for all the wonderful audience out there. What do you think? Do you think this movie's a winner, a loser, or we don't know yet? And if you have an answer for how much money it's going to make, let us know down in the comments section below. And of course, check out Ascendant Art Podcast featuring a little chat. In fact, it's down there in the description below as well. On that note, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya for real.